Welcome again to Supernatural Scotland, the podcast. I am your host, Mark Smith. We seem to be getting into the better weather now, with some sunshine the last few days and feelings of the warm sun on our faces. All the places off the beaten track will be drying up, ready for visiting. There's never a bad time to visit Scotland. However, if you do want to visit some places out the way, this is the best kind of time to start visiting Scotland. I'm starting to think of some places to visit, to take some videos for the YouTube channel and for the TikTok channel, so keep an eye out for those. I'm finding a bit of an issue with TikTok right now with blocking the sound off some of my videos by saying that it's copyrighted. But all my sound effects and music have been paid for, and I'm allowed to use them in any which way that I wish. Anyway, back to the podcast. Scotland has so many different places to visit, with a totally different kind of adventure to be had at each, whether you are doing a city break or you're heading off the beaten track into the countryside, or you're maybe visiting the Highlands. You will not regret it. We also have some great campsites, caravan parks to visit, as well as some beautiful beaches. Our first story this week is focused more on a person than the location. This is the story of Agnes Finnie, who is believed to be a witch, or maybe she was just a very crabbit woman. Agnes had a shop in Edinburgh and also dabbled in money lending, but she was also known as a healer. Agnes had a bad temper and was quite aggressive when she felt the need. Somehow, even with her nasty personality, she was a very successful shop owner. Agnes had a reputation for cursing people in her neighbourhood who she felt had wronged her or were late with repayments from her side business of money lending. She was charged with harming neighbours with physical violence at times. The abuse and chaos she caused in her neighbourhood spanned around 16 years. That's 16 years of a horrible woman shouting abuse, cursing neighbours and being physically violent towards them. I can only imagine her neighbours celebrated when she was finally arrested for witchcraft. One normal day in Agnes's life, she aggressively told a woman named Bessie she would have the devil take a bite out of her. Her reasoning behind this aggression was the fact she believed Bessie had paid in counterfeit coins. Bessie told her husband John about the altercation. John was outraged by this and visited the shop personally to have it out with Agnes. He accused her of witchcraft, and Agnes responded the only way she knew how. Agnes should have really been more careful, as a religious war was brewing with hunger and disease devastating the city. The church and the parliament started the famous witch hunts and trials. To be accused of being a witch during this time pretty much meant death for 99% of the people accused. They would be tortured and go through crazy tests to see if they were indeed a witch, before being strangled and burned at the stake. John, on the same night of his argument, fell quite ill with a fever he believed Agnes caused. He returned to the shop and warned her not to do it again, or he would tell everyone she was a witch. Months later, Bessie returned and requested a cake on credit. Agnes refused Bessie's request, and Bessie returned to John, who then returned back to the shop in hopes of bullying Agnes into agreeing to the cake on credit. That does not sound like something Agnes would do. Agnes said to John, "Go away, John, for ye began with witches, so shall ye end with witches." John became ill again, and died 2 months later. This spread around the locals, and I'm sure this was with help from Bessie. Agnes was formally accused of witchcraft. She was arrested on 20 counts of witchcraft and sorcery. The case was unusually long from arrest and prosecution to death. Agnes spent 9 months imprisoned at the toll booth. Now remember the toll booth from a previous episode. If you haven't listened to it yet, go check it out. 2 advocates were hired to defend her, which would be very hard given Agnes's charming personality. Agnes's reputation grew over time, with tales becoming darker and more carried away. Or maybe, just maybe, they were true all along. A child had died after Agnes treated him. A woman suffered palsy after a row over unpaid rent. And a young girl who was daughter to one of Agnes's adversaries broke her leg. A woman who had complained about Agnes's fish being off became ill and died 2 weeks later. None of this gossip helped Agnes at all. She was tried on the 20th of December 1644, but her execution was not until the 6th of March 1645 on the Castle Hill of Edinburgh. In 2008, Agnes Finnie's name was one of thousands presented for posthumous pardon by the Scottish Parliament. Was Agnes just an aggressive, angry woman? Or was she a not-so-secretive witch? And now for Crathes Castle. Crathes was built on the land given to the Burnet family by Robert the Bruce in 1323. During the 14th and 15th centuries, the Burnet family built a fortress of timbers on an island in the middle of a bog. After the land was given to them, they built Crathes Castle. The construction of the tower was started in 1553, but took many years due to political problems during the time of Mary Queen of Scots. It was finished in 1596. An additional wing was built in the 18th century. In 1877, Sir Robert Burnet updated the Great Hall by adding oak panelling and gilded leather in a medieval style to keep his New York wife Matilda happy and her guests. Like many castles becoming too costly to keep, it was passed to the National Trust for Scotland in 1951. Included with the castle's ghosts is the White Lady. This is believed to be the spirit of a lady named Bertha, who fell madly in love with the young Laird Alexander Burnet. Bertha had her own room in the castle as they were to be married. In storybook fashion, the wicked Lady Agnes, his mother, decided Bertha was not good enough for her son. While Alexander was away for a night, Lady Agnes took it upon herself to poison poor Bertha. This is where the story gets juicy. Alexander was devastated, but also suspicious of his mother. When the girl's parents came to collect the body, Lady Agnes drained of colour, going chalk white and pointing in the distance while screaming, "She comes! She comes!" before dropping down dead. It's said that once a year, on the anniversary of her death, the White Lady wanders near the castle. Green must have been a very fashionable colour back in the old days, as it also has a more famous green lady, and you will remember from previous episodes a green lady comes up quite often. Women definitely had it hard during Scotland's history, and I guess this is why we see a lot of ladies in white, green, blue, black, all sorts of colours. This green lady has even been seen by none other than Queen Victoria. It is a mystery who the green lady is, but some think she may be a young woman who had a relationship with a stable boy and became pregnant. She hid her condition for a while, but eventually she could not hide it anymore. Her father was furious when he discovered this. You have to remember, back in old days, they married their children off to other families of similar wealth or for money and lands, but his daughter was no virgin and had been made pregnant by a lowly stable boy. Sadly, the girl and her baby vanished soon after. The green lady appears as a young woman carrying a baby, or sometimes as a green orb which would float across a room before disappearing into a fireplace. In the 1800s, during renovation works done in the green lady's room, the workmen lifted the hearth of the fireplace and discovered bones. These were not of the lady, but of a baby. The green lady has been seen by many visitors to the castle as well as staff over the years, and can be seen from time to time until this day. So if you fancy seeing a ghost, this may be the place to visit. This week I'm changing things up a bit. No creature feature this week, but a feature about legends of Scotland. Let's kick it off with Corryvreckan Whirlpool. The Gulf of Corryvreckan, also known as the Strait of Corryvreckan, is a narrow strait in between the islands of Jura and Scarba. This is off the west coast of Scotland. The Corryvreckan Whirlpool is the third largest whirlpool in the world. There is a legend about this very whirlpool and a prince. In the stories, he moored his boat very close to the whirlpool to receive the hand of a local princess in marriage by impressing her father. He was tasked with surviving 3 days and 3 nights by the whirlpool. 3 ropes were made. These were made of hemp, wool, and from maiden's hair. They thought the purity of the maiden's hair would make the rope unbreakable, so our prince set about his task and moored his boat near the whirlpool. Firstly, he used the hemp rope, which snapped on the first night. Then he used the wool rope, which snapped on the second night. On the final night, the maiden's hair rope snapped, and the boat was destroyed by the whirlpool. One surviving crew member was able to pull the prince's body ashore. One of the maidens, which hair was used for the rope, was feeling very guilty at this point and finally confessed. She was not pure, and this is why the rope broke. Perhaps the prince should have picked something better for his final choice of rope. And our last legend and story of the episode is based in Dundee. Dundee has its very own dragon legend, and they even have their own dragon statue. As the legend goes, a farmer lived on the outskirts of Dundee, and he sent one of his daughters to fetch water from a well. She never returned, which was strange, so the farmer sent another daughter, and this daughter also never returned. The farmer, for some reason, kept sending one daughter after another, until all 9 had been sent. The farmer at this point decided to check on his daughters at the well. He was met with the gruesome sight of a sleeping dragon lying with the bodies of his 9 daughters. They had all been slain by this evil creature. The farmer ran back to the village to seek help from the villagers. Martin, who was a lover of one of the dead daughters, was heartbroken, and his heart burned for revenge on the evil dragon. They left with some villagers to slay the dragon. When Martin confronted the dragon, the villagers shouted, "Strike Martin!" This he did, and he killed the dragon with his blow. That was the end of the dragon. And that is the end of episode 15. Thank you for your continued support, and to the new listeners, welcome, and thank you for taking time to listen to the podcast. Please listen to the rest. These are available on most platforms. Until next time, goodbye.